Hello and welcome to the DIY Strategic Planning Toolkit. Out of the box thinking to lift your strategic planning process up another gear. Now, before we start the presentation, I just want to bring to your attention a saying by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and it's: a goal without a plan is just a wish. And this struck home with me because I read one of his books in French as a teenager, Vol de Nuit, and very much about the aimlessness of just flying out with no point of reference. And this is what it can be like when it comes to strategic planning. Now, my name is Pat Gross, the community entrepreneur, and I've experienced strategy at international, national, regional and local levels. And what do I mean by that? It means that I was once in a position where I could see things that are happening at the European Union level, an international level, and also I saw things happening at the state level. When I say state, I mean the country state, but also at the state level in Australia, where I was employed by an entity of the Victorian government, and then at local levels, local government levels, I'm working with clients and always getting them to refer to what the strategic planning documentation is at the local government level, because physically that's where my clients are located, within a local government area. And also other strategic planning documentation. It could be sectoral, it could be about a capability, but a strategic plan is something that's so important because it gives you an insight into the vision of others. And when I talk about a matter of a home hardware chain, I studied business administration at a degree level, and one of the subjects I took was corporate strategy. And as a group exercise, we were to review one of the top supermarket chains. And at the time, I remember putting in the throwaway, looking at all the analysis, the situation, etc., and the environment. I suggested that what they should be doing is looking at purchasing a home hardware chain. We handed our report in on the Friday, and the following Wednesday, by pure coincidence, the supermarket chain in question announced their purchase of, drumroll, a home hardware chain. So this has always perked my interest when it comes to strategy. So why have a strategic plan in the first place? Well, let me start by saying that a strategic plan is not a business plan. A business plan is a 1-year snapshot of how you're going to operate a bigger strategy. Or you just might be just doing what can we do in our business for a year. There's no ultimate direction, there's no clear vision in the future, and it's not strategic. A strategic plan, you're looking at a future goal. And therefore, if you put yourself in the future goal and look back, you can see all the things that need to be in the place in order to achieve that goal. And that goal can be for a community, it can be for a business, or it can be for your own personal reasons. But be very, very clear that a strategic plan is your roadmap to achieving an ultimate destination. Now, this presentation isn't about how to put together a strategic plan. I've got that covered in other presentations. What I'm going to do here is to try and make it an interesting process. And I'm going to start with what I call the left brain model, because strategic planning is very, very left brain if you let it be that way. These are the stages. So you've got the preparation stage, and when I call preparation, it's about setting it up, the intentions, setting up the dates, who's going to lead the process, who's going to facilitate, etc. Very, very sort of linear, straightforward left brain. Then you're going into the environmental scan phase. And I've seen examples where that exercise has not actually been done very well. And merely without a good environmental scan, you might as well be navel gazing. But the environmental scan itself is looking at data, it's looking at other people's or organisations' planning processes. It's very left brain. Coming out of the environmental scan, you've got the SWOT analysis, you've got all the business analysis tools, and again, they're very left brain. Vision, mission, and values, they're your destination. They're that's needed. Your vision is where you see your business or your organisation in its ultimate destination. Your vision, how you see it. Your purpose is different. The purpose is your why you're in business, why your organisation is as it is. Your mission is how you're going to achieve that vision. Remember I was saying, if you look back and you can see all the milestones that needed to be in place, that's how your mission operates. And then you've got the values. The values are the culture of your organisation or your business. It's the way that you are, the way you operate every day, the feeling within the organisation. Yes, that is right brain, but it's written down in a very left brain manner. These are the values, these are the behaviours we expect. And then you've got the goals, priorities, actions, and then finally put them all together and you've got a strategic plan. Yes, there's more to it, but I just wanted to show you that it's very much a left brain model. Now, for a while there, I was going very, very well when I was facilitating strategic plans and the processing, and everything seemed to be going great. I would had a couple of extra bits to the way I did plan the workshops. And then I made this decision one day just to cut out the frills, so to speak, and then just leave the pure model. And what I found was, for some reason, I wasn't gelling. I wasn't gelling with the people in the room. I wasn't gelling with the process. Something just wasn't right. And that came through in the result. And I wasn't quite happy, and I had no idea what it was. Until I realised that the frills that I'd taken out were actually right brain components to the planning process. One of them was letter writing, one of them was visualing and picking out images to express how people felt. So what I'd done is taken something that had added value to the left brain by adding a little bit of balance of right brain. And I swapped out the right brain and ended up with the left brain checklist. So the purpose of this presentation is to give you some ideas. If you're going to be putting together a strategic planning process, these are some additional elements that you could include in the process so that you're stimulating right brain balance to the left brain activity. And believe me, if you do this properly, your results will demonstrate and show great results over and above just having to go through a left brain step-by-step process. So let's start right back at the beginning of the preparation stage. And this is the stage when you decide who's going to be involved here. And for me, I'm talking about in the actual management and facilitation. Because you're going to have a committee or a board, because it's an organisation. If it's a business, it may be your own strategic plan. But if we're talking about a group of people, there's a committee or a board. And it's their plan because it's around governance. Strategic planning is governance, not operations. You can create an operational plan out of the strategic plan. In fact, you should, because everything must hang off the strategy. But for all intents and purposes of a strategic plan, the committee is paramount. There will be an executive officer position, or a manager, or a coordinator, or whoever that person is at the intersection of governance and operations. And they are also a key player, because without having full input and knowledge of the strategic plan, then they're really sort of not going to get the full picture when their requirement is to execute the strategy into operations. And then there's the role of the facilitator. Now, sometimes that can be done in-house, and that's probably where it can get a little bit dangerous, a little bit dicey, a little bit dodgy, simply because the facilitator may be a person in power. It could be the manager, the executive officer. It could be a personality on the committee, but whatever it is, they will have an undue influence on the outcome of the strategic plan. It's better to bring in somebody independent, whether you pay for that or whether it's somebody who does it pro bono or voluntary, it doesn't matter. The key feature here is that the facilitator is independent, which means everybody, committee, manager, executive officer, can all contribute equally together. There's no undue influence. Anyway, the right brain activity in that little recommendation then was that if you get an external facilitator, it leaves everybody to be creative in their thinking. Now, there are other ways that you can mix up the mix, so to speak. And I've put a couple of examples here. First of all, you can bring along guest speakers to your strategic planning process. There may be an industry expert, an association, or a stakeholder that's very important to your organisation and what's going on in their industry. It could be a local council, what's going on, or it could be a peak body, an association. If you could bring them to the table to tell you their story about what's happening, or you could bring on creative professionals like artists or writers that can give fresh perspectives to the environment. That's going to stimulate your thinking and get you thinking new ways of doing things, and also implications that you wouldn't normally see in black and white. Well, you'd see a black and white text, but somebody coming to talk about that may bring some life to the words and take you in a whole new direction. And then you've got customer panels, engage directly with customers or clients to gain insights and validate strategic directions. Again, one of the things I do is I speak to important stakeholders to get their perspectives and then bring it to the table for the participants of the strategic planning beforehand, so they've got a broader idea of what's going on in the world beyond just reading reports. Let's now think actually at the start of the process as to where you're actually going to be doing your brainstorming, bringing your committee, board, etc. together. In the strategic planning process, done properly, there is an opportunity to bring people together. Now, most of the time we just think of using the boardroom or a room in a venue. But have you thought about actually thinking of creative space to do your strategic planning process? A library, an artist studio. I'm thinking of some kind of a museum, something that brings a different atmosphere, a creative atmosphere that gets you buzzing, gets you thinking, and isn't that cold, stereotypical box of a room, you know, 4 walls and a roof. The other thing that you can be doing to take this theme, this creative theme, a little bit further is to plan your strategic planning exercises where you're using drawings or paintings or even building with blocks to represent strategic ideas physically and visually. And this is where I fell down when I had been using cards, images, and I'd been stimulating ideas, and I took them away, and that was a big mistake. That's because I'd taken away the artistic expression or an exercise of artistic expression. So think about that. Think about where you're going to hold your brainstorming session, and think about the creative ways that you can stimulate ideation. Once you've got your team in place and you know where you're going to deliver the brainstorming session, for example, the next point you're looking at are the next two steps, which are the environmental scan and the situation analysis. Now, the environmental scan has a big focus on collecting data, on collecting information. It could be demographic data, it could be information about stakeholder plans, etc., that are going to have an impact on your organization or your market or your community. The one piece of advice I can give in that situation, especially when it comes to demographic data or economic data for the figures, is yes, you can put the tables together, but they're so boring. Instead, replace them with an infographic. And there's no excuse these days because the infographics are available on software such as Canva, for example. So you can be able to pick out some key data, some key figures, and they can jump off the page just by simply putting them in as an infographic. Now I'm going to move on now to situation analysis, but what I'm talking here is not so much the analysis as the good old post-it notes, because they're different colours. And this is when I'm introducing them, because you can start using them for putting together your SWOT, for example, or your other analysis tools. Create the table, the framework, but you don't need to just write in the data just as it is. Get people to think for themselves. Get them to put their ideas of what the strengths are. We just use SWOT as an example here. Weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and let them put them in themselves. And the idea then is you're helping people to stimulate their own thinking. You're not relying on others. And then you can move them around. And you can do this for not just the SWOT analysis, but you might want to do this for putting together your value statements. You know, what do people consider the values of the organization? And that's another exercise that you can do using simple post-it notes. Another tool in the situation analysis space is when we're talking about stakeholder roles, customers, competitors, government, for example, regulators, the environmentalists. It doesn't matter who it is, but what you can do just to understand where they're coming from and the impact that they're going to have on your organization moving forward, or your marketplace or your community, is to do some role play to get people to act as though they were those stakeholders and see what comes up then, because that then helps sort of expand the potential. How about goal setting and risk planning on steroids? Yes, create a storyboard. This one looks quite artistic, but why? But in order to get to your goal, and this is looking at putting together your priorities, setting yourself at the destination point in 3 or 5 years' time, looking back, or you could go for the whole vision if you want, but looking backwards and thinking, what were those milestone points, or what needs to happen along the way, and create those flags and then recreate them as a roadmap, as a journey map. Visualize it, draw it, and then look at what could be the potential hazards, the risks, the problems that you're going to come across on the way. And before you've finished, you've got this really good, constructive, visual image, a picture of your journey. Try it, you'll be surprised. Now, I've iterated a few times the need to have a vision, but it doesn't just need a vision, it needs to be a compelling vision, one that brings the emotion, the heartfelt emotion. See it, feel it, touch it, sense it, smell it, bring in all the emotions, because that is the secret of a compelling vision. I'm going to here talk about a computer on every desktop. This is one that Microsoft had so many years ago, and it's still one that resonates today. This is an example of a distant vision, but it wasn't that distant. But you can imagine the emotion that evokes those simple 5 words, a computer on every desktop. See it, feel it, touch it, sense it. So let's start thinking about how we can help the visioning process using some creative tools. And here are a couple of examples. What you can do, and this is what I was using and which I dropped for a while and realized that when I dropped this tool, I wasn't getting the results that I was looking for. And it's simple, really. For my version, it was a case of asking the participants of the brainstorming session to write letters in the future tense to colleagues or to friends or family, describing the situation as it was then, including examples, feelings, etc., and then to read them out aloud to everybody. And from that, we were able to get some common themes coming through. You could do the same by asking your participants to talk about future news headlines. And those are the grabbers, those are the goals. And it can help to clarify your long-term goals and aspirations. The second tool is called backcasting. So you can be 10 years in the future and look back to identify the steps were needed to achieve the success that you'd identified in your future news headlines. Simple. Another tool you can use is scenario building, where you develop multiple future scenarios and plan strategies for each, enhancing flexibility and preparedness. Now, one day, a colleague of mine introduced me to the idea of collecting bottle tops of different shapes, sizes, and colours. And then she showed us how she then uses them in her strategic planning process when it comes to scenario building. Not just strategic planning, it's also for problem solving activities as well, because you're putting the emotion into a bottle top or a set of bottle tops. So you're one step removed. So you're able to then have a helicopter view and be able to plan without that additional emotion. So today I've just presented you with a few examples of how you can turn the left brain strategic planning process into a creative adventure incorporating right brain tools. So with these in mind, where do you start? Well, we have a DIY strategic planning toolkit, which is your one-stop resource for putting together your strategic plan. And it includes 4 interactive units and a workbook. It has the template for a strategic plan that you can take, break apart, reconstruct, do whatever you want. It's just a guideline and a time frame checklist for you to get yourselves organized and to ensure that you get the most out of the process. And then coming out of that is an annual plan template. So look out for next time when we will be looking at mission-led income generation, because grants are not the only way to generate income for not-for-profits. In this session, we will explore income sources that will help keep the doors open in tough times.